this Mississippi, I mean, Brandon, when we talked about it on the phone the other day, I about stood up out of my chair reading some of these numbers. I mean, where do you want to go? It is wild.
Well, the one that just jumps off the page for me is that 53% of the folks we spoke with want somebody other than their sitting senator. I mean, that's something that we're seeing bad numbers, but that's an incredibly bad number for someone who's been in office for a long time, whose name ID is 95%. And so just in the way of context setting, we did this poll on behalf of SPLC Action Fund. We tried to get our best guess at what a general electorate would be. And, as you've mentioned, as both of you have mentioned, we see incumbent Republicans struggling across the board, but 53% saying that they would like to elect someone other than their current senator is just pretty striking to us. And then, as you go down the list, a couple other things to note here for us was that there was a 3-point difference between the Democrat and the Republican at the first pass through. There is a third party candidate in this race. Since that candidate had run twice as a Democrat, the expectation was that that person would be drawing votes from Democratic voters, but in fact, seems to be serving as sort of a repository for disgruntled Republicans who intend to participate, but really don't like their incumbent senator. And of course, as we've seen everywhere else, things like cost of living and inflation are just running away with the storyline. Healthcare costs rated really high among concerns for voters. And I think, to your point you were making a moment ago, Alex, I think it's always a mistake for the political class to pat themselves on the back too much when they see figures like this. A lot of this has to do with mismanagement of geopolitical issues. A lot of it has to do with incompetency of the current administration and down the line. But I will credit folks like Scott Colon, the candidate in Mississippi, and other Democrats across the country for properly centering the economy and cost of living issues within how they're talking to voters right now, because that clearly is what is moving people.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I think is clear, I just see it everywhere, is independence. And you can see it in those numbers: 33% nationwide approval of Trump, 23 with independents. I mean, in other words, it's higher within. I mean, that's bigger than the population, and it just seems to me that across the board, it's all adding up. I mean, obviously, affordability, the war in terms of the way its impact on gas prices, all those things. Is further, like you said, incompetence, or just cruel, like going for it every time, as layered up in which literally the independents are gone. I don't see how the incumbent senators that have enabled it are going to somehow, be able to duck and not take the wrath of those, not just the Democrats, but the independents. That's why everybody out there keeps talking about the blue wave. I don't see this as a blue wave anymore. This is something where when you get to 68% approval among Republicans, it's a change wave. It's bigger and cresting a lot higher with a lot more power than just Democrat. I mean, this is Democrats, independents, and now Republicans, enough of them joining that sort of like need for change to turn the page on what's going on in the country right now in terms of their economic future, their economic reality today, the rising costs, and just the chaos that I think is adding up to these kind of things where you suddenly have a race where the sitting senator in Mississippi is literally sitting on a bubble and can be beaten. And so we now everybody's saying don't go to sleep on Iowa. Alex and I have been urging people not to go to sleep on Iowa for a couple months now, but you can't go to sleep on Mississippi, and helping in these races, the kind of races that Alex, and look, when people called and said, "Hey, will you come down and help us talk Doug Jones into running in 2017 in Alabama?" Most people would have said what a lot of people in Washington were saying is, "Hell no, no one's won anything in Alabama in 25 years. Not going to waste our time." We dove in, and we've been there with you in Mississippi, and I think people need if you want to help. There are some races in Alabama, Mississippi, Florida that really are going to matter, and I think all of them are winnable if we get them the resources and the help they need.
After Joe's great ask there, I do want to just point something out that I think might be buried. This is not some pie in the sky. If everything happens and 200,000 magical new Democrats move to the state and all decide to vote and all bring their friends and all of a sudden, no, this poll had a plus 13 generic. And what that means is 47% of people normally vote Republican and only 34% in this sample vote for Democrats. So you turn that around, and right now, Cindy Hyde-Smith is 20 points underwater. That is the clearest indication of throw the bums out you can see. If you've got 47% of Republicans, people who usually vote Republican, and she's only pulling 33% right now, before we even get into any attacks, any positives on the Democrat Scott Colon, which we'll get to in a minute, she's already down 13%. And remember that Trump approval rating I talked about. I think he's at 52. I think you have him at like plus 13, plus 12 or plus 13. So she's like 35 points below Trump. And by the way, that plus 12, I'm kind of thinking it might be a little generous. I realize The Economist has him 8 points underwater, but it's not going to be more than 12. Might be less. It might be 12. But even in these conditions that I would say are a fairly conservative look at this electorate in the midst of a change wave, after persuasion, which by the way, the cool thing is we're actually going to have the resources to do it, thanks to groups like New Southern Majority, etc. She's losing by 10. It's 44-34, and it's never really that close. So you add all this up, and this is my point about it really is everywhere.